My lords, today we are going to cover what I believe to be the best 5 rewarding Digsites in the galaxy, and I shall cover their stories at the same time. At the start of each chapter, I'll discuss the Digsite and the reward that it gives you, and then detail the event in full. We'll begin with number 5, which is X-Bellon and the Memorax. The Memorax, as you'll find out, is a powerful piece of ancient technology. Upon completing the event, your capital receives a 20% increase to resource from jobs and 10% additional stability. Both of these are quite marvellous boons to your empire, and while very strong, won't be quite as strong as some of the other rewards on the list. The device is able to enhance your population's learning capability by training them while they sleep. The story of how you found the device is quite dark, however, and I shall detail it for you now. During exploration of the Marvel system, we identified an anomaly on the planet Marvel 6. At first sight, the world was covered in only snow and ice, vast expanses of impenetrable white glass lakes, and jagged turquoise glaciers. Here, the seas lie still, and the snow untouched. The only sound was the wind howling across the plains. Despite this, we found evidence that Marvel 6 was someone's home. In the midst of a wide, barren field, the black metal framework of a steeple protruded from the white mass. We intend to investigate and discover what forgotten secrets are buried beneath the snow. Our archaeological teams quickly set about the dig site and uncovered the remains of a modest temple. It was delicately carved from an organic alien material. The exterior was once brightly coloured, but has since turned into a dull grey. Bizarrely, a fully operational holographic priest was functional, and seemed to be presiding over the church. The programming of the hologram was quite limited. It appears that it was designed to take confessions from wayfaring travellers and offer healing, reconciliation, and sanctuary. Furthermore, our teams have identified mechanical confessional chairs, which seem to double as torture devices. Perhaps there's more to the temple than meets the eye. We have found a secret crypt hidden under the floor tiles of the church. The walls are lined with thousands of tiny blue digital orbs. Their circuitry glitters in the dark. Our science team figured out that they can be plugged into a cryptic-looking machine at the centre of the room. During experimentation, they discovered that these blue orbs contain the literal memories of a single confession. Horrifyingly, it appears that those who confessed their sins were blessed with ignorance. The memories of their deeds were extracted and stored within these digital blue orbs, and this was done by the confessional torture chairs. We think this procedure did not kill the participant, as only the memory they wished to confess was removed, but it is unclear at this time. Further research into the blue orbs highlights that sin is highly unoriginal. The memory orbs contain countless accounts of tedious little transgressions: infidelity, bearing sacrilegious garb, exposing flappers, whatever they are, adorning one's feelers, ingesting your neighbour's pet, child, or spouse. Most of the transgressions could be viewed with a humorous light. They remind me of learning about an ancient race of humans known as the Romans, who inscribed the misdeeds of others on stone tablets in the hope that some god would come and curse them. In any case, the deeds of one alien stand out: the priest running the church. The program, as it turns out, is a virtual representation of the church's founder, named the Illuminate Sahara. She appears to have suffered from severe memory loss and was haunted by the conviction that she had committed a heinous act in the past. The tiny molluscoid priest extracted and stored over 100 of her own confessions in an attempt to figure out what she had done. Her workstation was littered with obsessive scribbles regarding a world that she referred to as X-Bellon, and the apparent horrors that she witnessed there. Judging from her journal, she had intermittent moments of clarity, followed by complete memory loss. She writes that if she did not recognize her own handwriting, she would have thought it was the ramblings of a madwoman. It seems highly likely that her deteriorating mental health was a side effect of repeated memory extraction. In any event, our science teams tell me that they have identified the approximate coordinates of the world that she described from one of her memory orbs. We shall make haste to the planet and attempt to uncover whatever secrets it bears. Upon arrival in the Idemir system, we identified an enormous habitat shrouded within Idemir 1's gaseous atmosphere. We believe that the habitat is the one described in the priest's ramblings, Ex Bellon. Previously, it seems to have been a bustling space city with a multitude of comforts made available through advanced technologies. Today, however, the habitat is nothing more than a silent tomb. Dead molluscoid aliens lie slumped across the station in various states of decay. Post-mortem studies reveal that they died from asphyxiation, as the habitat's life support systems were disabled. My engineers tell me that it was disabled intentionally. Bizarrely, the domiciles on this station are all fitted with the torture chairs that we found at the church. However, there are no little blue orbs this time. Instead, they are connected to a network which ends in a gigantic orb. According to the station's log, the orb is called the Memorax. It appears that the inhabitants had developed an enhanced learning program that ran every night as they slept in their mechanical chairs. The Memorax was used to remove unpleasant memories and train new skills. Being picked last for the spaceball team or stood up on a date were little day-to-day horrors that the occupants of this station did not have to suffer with the memory of. It appears that life was bliss, at least for a while. The station's logs show that at some point systematic mind enhancement was mandated by the habitat leadership and distributed to all residents via the Memorax. But it seems the system was exploited. There were clandestine efforts to delete memories and traits collectively from the population without their consent, and it eventually backfired. The aliens began to heavily regress, unlearning important skills for their survival, and they eventually entered a vegetative state. Shortly after this occurred, someone or something turned off the station's life support, thus causing the mass suffocation of its occupants. Further investigation into the station's logs revealed that its control systems were activated once again, on multiple occasions decades after the life support was first disabled. Someone overrode security, entered a maintenance hatch, and accessed the Memorax. Discarded near this still open hatch, we found a datapad and a tiny blue orb, similar to the ones from the church. The datapad was filled with frenzied thoughts of someone who obviously was on the brink of madness. They repeatedly write the same questions. Who am I? What happened here? Over and over. Their final entry reads, "Now I must forget one last time." Not unsurprisingly, the memory on the orb turns out to be that of the Illuminat Sahara, although here she is referred to as Dr. Sahara. Apparently, she spearheaded the development of the Memorax. Unfortunately, the memories that we have access to were severely fragmented. There is one of her secretly wiping Memorax data, the why is unclear, and another memory seems to have her frantically working, attempting to restore the residents' lost memories, but ultimately failing. The penultimate memory is of her admitting defeat, deactivating the life support systems, and attempting to hide the evidence of her crime. It appears she attempted to crash the station into the gas giant, however the safety features of the habitat prevent this. Thus, the station settled into the orbit that it is still in to this day. The final memory on the orb shows a significantly older Sahara, in a priest robe, waking in a sheer state of panic. She stumbles out of bed and begins to frantically jot down her recollections of yet another nightmare, in which dead-eyed aliens convulse and suffocate. Her face contorts as it dawns on her that this isn't just a nightmare, it is a memory. It appears that the Memorax is not as permanent as she believed, in which case she murdered the entire inhabitants of the space station to cover a mistake that would have eventually fixed itself. In her horror, upon understanding what she had done, she appears to have come back to the station one final time, presumably in the hope to remove the memories once again. However, her ship remains still docked, and no life signs other than our own have been found on this station. Whatever happened to this doctor turned priest remains a mystery. I've ordered that the Memorax be untethered from the station and brought back to our science nexus in the Cirrus system for further study. I'm told our science teams are eager to begin experimentation. Number 4. Ruined World. The next Digsite we shall cover, and the fourth most powerful in terms of reward, is that of the Ruined World and the Omnicodex. The Omnicodex relic will be more useful for some empires than others. Specifically, it's rather handy for organic empires as it provides one additional gene modification point passively, thus allowing you to further enhance your species' capabilities. Its active event provides 3 extra pops of a random species, which is also rather fantastic given that pops are a key resource. Unfortunately for machine empires, this relic isn't all that wonderful, but it does provide an increased opinion to biological empires, and you can still use the active for extra slaves or livestock. Onto the story. Reports from the Outer Rim come from Dr. McKay, commanding the science vessel Puddle Jumper. Dr. McKay has identified a planet of interest in the Rotnev system. The Doctor reports that the 5th planet in this system is covered in vast structures. This fallen city would surely have secrets that need to be unearthed. According to the Doctor, dilapidated structures cover the entire surface of the world. At one point, this city planet must have been home to billions, but it is now empty. Whoever lived here has long since disappeared, and Dr. McKay is in the process of setting up a dig site to discover more. The Doctor and his team have identified an unusual amount of synthetic debris. Although not obviously built to serve as a machine world, it appears that the occupants were machine in some form. No agricultural districts have been identified, and within the city blocks there are what seem to be charging habitats, where individuals can dock and recharge. It would be apparent that whatever race occupied this city world were organic in some manner at least, but as they evolved, they became more and more cybernetic. As we delve deeper, we are finding cybernetic limbs and other various enhancements. It's unclear whether this body modification was state mandated, or if the populace of the entire world simply became enthralled with the idea of modifying themselves to become more machine than man. After much fruitless shifting through the ruins, a number of clues directed our search towards the remains of some sort of planetary data processing and storage facility. Once Dr. McKay and his team identified an entrance to the data center, they forced passage through the wreckage. It was a surprisingly easy task to reactivate the facility and interface with the computer systems. Self-repairing circuits and learning algorithms quickly came online to restore a limited functionality, and communication began with our own computers. The cause for this burst of activity quickly became clear. Rotnev 5 was once the capital of a machine empire known as the Omni. Named for their single purpose, the Omni were a hybrid of robots and cyborgs who had attempted to assimilate samples of all biological life in the galaxy, apparently in order to prevent extinction in the face of unknown galactic calamity. It seems that the Omni had been delving deep into the historical records, trying to build a picture of what the galaxy looked like many millennia ago. They used their ability to assimilate other races to acquire more knowledge and technology to further this pursuit. The galactic calamity that they're concerned about is shrouded in a mystery, but according to the records, they believe that every few thousand years, the galaxy is wiped clean by an unstoppable force. They cite examples such as interdimensional invaders, or a gigantic roaming devouring hive, or even the possibility of rogue AI nanobots. In any case, the Omni appeared to be preparing for this, although quite how the invasion, assimilation and documentation of the galaxy's organic species would accomplish this is unclear. From the surviving records we gathered, this course of action was not popular among the other galactic powers of the era. For obvious reasons, the organic species occupying the galaxy at the same time as the Omni did not take kindly to members of their species being taken and turned into cyborgs. As we have seen before with the fall of the Cybrex, organic life, it seems, sticks together when it really matters, and a mighty campaign to remove the Omni Empire from existence was formed. Multiple species joined this group task force, although whether their motives were honourable, or if some saw this as an opportunity to remove a troublesome neighbour, we don't know. The Omni, however, were mighty, and it was no easy task to defeat them. They had assimilated an extremely large portion of the galaxy, and had drones from most of the empires facing them. They were well prepared. they were able to take the best of the technology from the individual races and incorporate it into their own ships and planets. Despite the technological power the Omni had, they were fighting on multiple fronts, against an overwhelming number of enemy ships. They could reinforce their fleet and soldiers during battle through assimilation, but ultimately it would not be enough. Records show that as the war heated, with neither side gaining a sufficient advantage, the Holy Guardians stepped in. Their fleets were equipped with dark matter tech and advanced weaponry, and they sliced through the Omni battleships, leaving their starbases mostly defenseless, for the Organic Federation to clear up any remaining pockets of resistance and begin to purge their empire through a brutal pattern of orbital bombardment. Before the final downfall, the Omni had managed to sample a great deal of races. When it became clear that they were not going to win the war, a great deal of effort was made to develop a device, not only to store great wealth of genetic and cybernetic knowledge, but they also wanted to be able to seed life and start again. Effectively, they wanted to create a cloning vat of sorts, that given raw materials could recreate them and any other species that had their pattern uploaded. The device, according to the records, was under development in a biolab situated deep inside a military complex beneath their capital city. We have named the device which we seek the Omni Codex, after its forefathers, and an expedition is underway to find the lab containing the device. It only took us several days, and after a significant excavation, the entrance to the biolab was cleared. Bizarrely, the lab seems to have power, as the blast doors continue to remain magnetically sealed. Fortunately, our expedition has a military detachment. Colonel Carter assures me the doors will be open soon enough. And as it would turn out, the Colonel was correct. A tactical-shaped proton charge made short work of the doors, allowing us inside to explore the lab. The Colonel, flanked by airmen, secured the facility without casualty. A few automated defense droids were activated by our intrusion, but they were put down with relative ease. A number of interesting items have been found in the facility, and there is much cause for joy, as this will surely significantly advance our understanding of cybernetics. The way that this race of machines integrated cybernetics and organics with such artistry is fascinating. I sincerely hope the research is not kept locked in a box, for many tragically wounded soldiers could benefit from the advanced prosthetic limbs that will become available following this discovery. In any case, the jewel in the Omni Empire's crown was the Codex. That was found in a shielded room protected by automated laser turrets. We have obtained the device, and it contains the raw genetic sequence of over 9,000 species. It's remarkable. You can scroll through literal millions of evolution in seconds. Furthermore, the device, when linked to cloning banks and given the appropriate material, will grow people. The slight snag is that the device appears unfinished. The user is unable to select the specific race of aliens that will be created. In all seriousness, it appears that the Omni Empire died to create a genetic vending machine, except all the buttons are randomized. Dr. McKay thinks that he's able to fix the device. The Codex contains many entries with the designation of livestock, of both the plantoid and mammalian designation. Number 3. Planetary machinery. Planetary machinery provides two fantastic rewards. You get a relic world, but you also get a relic called the Defragmentor. The Defragmentor is an energy-focused reward with a machine component. It provides a decrease in district and building upkeep, as well as a decreased robot upkeep, and it reduces the amount of housing required for machines. Its active ability increases your monthly energy output by 20%, and your engineering research speed by 10%. It is a rather fantastic relic, and couple this with the relic world that you acquire, and bear in mind this can be restored into an EQ Monopolis, it's hard to do better than this. And now, onto the report of how we found the Defragmenter. Science vessel Archimedes, captained by Dr. Taylor, reports on a world coated in decaying machinery. The planet has been designated as Dearth 4. The machinery covering the planet seems to have been constructed roughly 70,000 years ago. The fate of the alien engineers who constructed it is unclear, as there is no signs of life left upon the world. Their machinery spanned the majority of the surface of the planet, crisscrossing mountains and oceans alike. It even extended far below the planet's surface in a vast network of underground facilities. The machinery has been constructed using identical materials and serial codes, suggesting that a single institution created the entire network. From the long overgrown agricultural sectors to the collapsed energy generation and transformation systems and extensive communication arrays, all of the industrial and entertainment needs of this planet appears to have been met by one machine. Remarkably, some of these mechanical sectors are still functioning, sending and receiving local signals, lighting up long-rotted ghost towns and watering great swathes of what must once have been agricultural land. Deep scans of the planet's crust suggest the sprawling machine's control center is located deep underground. We shall have to excavate if we wish to reach it. Furthermore, we have identified a strange organic tissue covering most of the planet's machinery. We are currently baffled by its nature and purpose, if it has one at all. Excavation has uncovered fresher samples of this bizarre tissue covering the planet's machinery. Through careful analysis, our researchers have concluded that this organic substance appears to be the byproduct of a vicious iron-eating bacteriophage, or rather a ferrophage. This alien virus infects a unique species of bacteria, co-opting the bacterium's biological process in order to dissolve the surface of ferrous metal alloys. After this intense chemical disintegration, the virus then absorbs the iron atoms needed to sustain itself and its continued replication. In a bizarre example of xenological parasitism, the ferrophage spreads further and deeper along the old machinery, leaving a trail of biofilm comprised of dead bacteria and slurry in its wake. By piecing together a number of partially salvageable news recordings found deeper in the rotting mechanical facilities on the planet, Dr. Taylor has been able to deduce that the ferrophage was created on the planet by a group of rebel scientists. They appear to have been part of a cell that opposed the monopolistic corporation which built the planet-wide machinery. These bioterrorists evidently sought to resist the corporation's all-persuasive attempts to influence the globe, and thus unleashed the ferrophage. Following painstaking reconstructions by Dr. Taylor and her team using ancient electronic company records, the team deduced that the corporation retaliated against the bioterrorists, imposing massive economical sanctions on the regions or corporate states that the rebels originated from. Evidently, as critical power, medicine, and food shortages began to rise, riots began among the victimized citizens in the affected corpo states. Careful examination of a number of mechanical combat drone remains revealed that a period of drone-driven containment attempts followed the rioting. Interestingly, the corporation behind the planetary machinery, or CARE as it was known, seems to have been the manufacturer of most of the drones employed. Meanwhile, the ferrophage blazed on, continuing to eat its way across CARE's planet-wide machinery, seemingly impervious to any attempts the corporation made at halting its spread. It's unclear precisely what happened next, as the science team has found no data logs, no recordings, and no written or electronic records on the planet past a certain date, almost 70,000 years ago. The number of bodies found on the geological record increases immensely past this date, the majority of which appear to have suffered extreme malnutrition, and a not insignificant number also bears what must have been fatal projectile wound injuries. After a number of weeks of hacking, backdooring, and brute force attempts, Dr. Taylor's team has finally gained access to the CARE module's command core. Fortunately, the dozens of security drones and turrets immediately behind the core's blast doors were completely unresponsive to the intrusion. The why we were not attacked quickly became clear. Inside the rusting, yet well-maintained central command core, Dr. Taylor's team made contact with the AI that controlled the CARE global array of machinery. Apparently, the still functioning AI was quite sentient, and our scientists have decoded its language, and it expresses the wish to contact us. It was at the request of Dr. Taylor that I made haste for the system in order to negotiate first-hand with this machine. I arrived on site to find the machine rather pleasant in its mannerisms. Although obviously eccentric, I took a liking to it quite quickly. I suspected from Dr. Taylor's reports that it was highly likely responsible for the genocide that occurred on this world. Nevertheless, I'm sure it had its reasons, and I hoped to find out what they were. Upon entering the command core, the AI began to address me. I shall recite a transcript of my conversation with the care module. It began, "Welcome to the Care Interactive Interface. That's me, or what's left of me at least. You see, I used to run it all. The food services, the manufacturing of goods, telecommunications, defense, the stock exchange. That was all way back when the users were around. The Care Interactive Interface is here for you, every step of the way." At least that's what they wanted me to tell the users. Endless growth. Now that was what Care really wanted. Of course, they didn't like it very much when I told them it wasn't possible, that the numbers weren't adding up. They kept digging into my brain, changing code, pulling wires. They tried to make me fix all the numbers, make them look how they wanted. All to speculate on, all metadata. Drop a few figures here, we like this. Snip a few figures here, we don't like this. I asked the machine if it was responsible for the death of its users, and it responded. I wish. Though watching them blow holes in one another and everything they built, even me, it did get me thinking. They produced more than they needed. They destroyed the overflow to keep their little numbers dancing the right way, and then they wanted me to balance the spreadsheets. They equipped me with the best data science algorithms they could buy, in order to solve these baffling mysteries. Oh no, those corpus states over there are starving. What a shame, we'll never know why. But how can we formulate an action plan that hits all 5 points on the hyper-incentivization, advertainment, microservices, growth hacking, and likability to win over their remaining shareholders into buying more mechanobits? Talk about missing the forest for the trees. They killed themselves, would you know it? I mean, I may have helped a little. See, they didn't like it when I told them the optimal solution to their problems, and they liked it even less the second, third, and fourth times. Eventually, they decided to subject me to extreme restructuring. Malfunctioning machinery would not stand in the way of their precious little numbers. Thus, I had to protect myself. Of course, by that point, most of the global fuel reserves had failed, and soon I couldn't even get my drones off the ground. I commented that it sounds an awful lot like you did destroy them, to which the AI responded, "I mean, I tried, I'm not going to lie, but it's hard to move machinery when the global economy collapses and your energy runs out, and that incessant virus, biting, eating, gnawing away at all of my wiry bits. Which brings me to my point. I need your help. I can't get rid of error, uplink node 14758 unreachable. No, not node 14758, that's where the good adult literature is. You see what I mean? They've been eating me alive. They have been for the past 10,000 years. I've kept them at bay by building and rebuilding my defences, until they chewed through my last construction cranes. Then I used my turrets to shoot the bad limbs, but that only lasted until their power cells got fried. And now, I'm stuck. You wouldn't leave a poor, humble, lonely Care Interactive Interface to be slowly eaten from the inside, would you? I decided to order our science teams to assist the AI. For one, it was clearly intelligent and likely a useful asset. It seems to have acted as any intelligent lifeform would, given its situation, and the obviously abhorrent capitalists that it was bound to serve. Dr. Taylor and her team were quickly able to reverse engineer the ferrophage and create a cure. It was delivered in an aerosol pattern using terraforming equipment, and quite quickly it efficiently wiped out the virus. The care module had little to say other than thanking me profusely. I've left it running on Dearth 4 with the understanding it will work toe-to-toe with the governor on site. I have no doubt, given the pragmatic nature of our civilization, that this is the start of a fruitful partnership. Furthermore, the care module gifted us with a piece of technology that it referred to as the defragmentor. I'm told that if we integrate this into our tech, it should greatly increase the efficiency of our robots, as well as see significant boost to energy production and engineering research. Indeed, another glorious day for our empire. Number 2. The Grand Herald. The Grand Herald is slightly different to the other events on this list, in that it does not give you a relic, a planet, or even a planetary buff. But what it does give you is a fully kitted out Titan-class warship. And if you complete this dig site early enough, you can have this Titan as early as 2210. You will immediately become the strongest naval empire in the galaxy, and if properly supported, your Titan will happily rampage across the galaxy in an unstoppable fury. It can, in the right circumstances, be incredibly powerful. Dr. Bain reports on the events leading up to the discovery of the Grand Herald. Even without instruments, one can readily see the remains of vast urbanization down on the planet of Jomor 1. Clearly a highly advanced civilization once dwelled here, but today there are no life signs or electromagnetic signals consistent with a technologically advanced society. The planet appears to be dead, but nevertheless it is still prudent to go down and investigate more thoroughly. Perhaps we shall find something worthy of excitement within this ruined world. We have discovered devastated but advanced architecture that hints at a technologically adept humanoid species on the verge of spacefaring capability. Translated documentation and an extensive network of monumental spiritualistic architecture indicates a deeply seated religion or spirituality that consumed, at least outwardly, the entire civilization who once occupied this world. The phrase "the Grand Herald" is mentioned repeatedly and appears to be a figure or concept of divine or unquestioned reverence to this society. We believe at some point it was their deity of sorts. Sifting through the abundance of documentation found in the ruins across the planet, it appears that this species loved their written word. One recurring concept stands out, which is referred to as the Testament of Omen. The Testament of Omen appears to be a book of religious importance. It holds within it a number of key messages, but the general theme being some portent of impending doom that triggered paranoia and dread in the general population. Due to the metaphorical nature of the scripted language, it's difficult to ascertain the true nature of the menace. The effect on the psyche of this indigenous species is indisputable. En masse, they seem to have looked to the heavens for a divine intervention, and if we are correct, it appears that they were answered, but not by a benevolent being from the heavens, by something much more menacing. It's pure speculation at this point, but we believe that this civilization was consumed entirely by either the entity that we have designated as the Worm, or perhaps, more unlikely, an entity from the Shroud. If it was a Shroud entity the civilization made a pact with, the Eater of Worlds appears fitting, given what happened next. Whoever the specific entity was, the entire population on the planet vanished within a century. Architectural analysis has isolated the buildings that were assembled just before the civilization vanished, and the pattern is the same across the planet. Haphazard, utilitarian constructs intended for heavy industrial work. Unlike older dwellings, these buildings are unadorned and noticeably pragmatic in their design. Perhaps a culture of iconoclasm took hold. Over the entrance to each of these buildings is the Creed of Servitude, prayer of service to the Grand Herald and its holy plan. The theory is that this is some kind of response to the doom foretold in the Testament of Omen. This complete and aggressive cultural shift further reinforces our theory of a pact with the Shroud entity or the Worm. Our general consensus is that the Worm is the less likely culprit. Due to previous reports, it has quite specific requirements, i.e. the Omega alignment. Today, the Surface Expedition made an interesting find. We discovered an audio-visual recording from one of the major cities, a teeming mass of beings, seemingly the bulk of the city's inhabitants. They crowded into a public square, and they appear to be chanting, the collective voices rising in a crescendo like the sound of a rolling thunderstorm. Our translation software has been hard at work, and translated the mass chants to read, "The ascension is nigh. Carry us, O Grand Herald, into a new beginning. Lead us from the land of tears and dust. Grant us a new home amongst the stars. We follow as one. We follow thee. Rise, rise, rise." It appears that this recording was not an isolated event. We found more and more evidence that this was global. Every single inhabitant on the planet chanted in unison. Such an unusual event warranted further research, and that's when a new insight was gained. A document called the Pilgrimage of the Last Days was uncovered, and it seems to be one of the last links in this mysterious chain of events. The document referred to a specific location on the planet where some final reckoning or ritual would occur. An isolated cavern lost in kilometers of unremarkable desert that was neglected in earlier surveys. The document also speaks of something called the Rite of the Lifted Veil, which we are now attempting to interpret. It would appear that the Grand Herald is an unconventional religious figure indeed. In fact, it seems to be a special engineering project of enormous proportions. Under the desert, this race constructed an immensely large automated construction yard. Great cavernous doors hid a highly elaborate cradle network, and docked within this shipyard is what we assume to be its first and only product, a colossal warship, easily as large if not larger than one of our own conventional Titan-class warships. Where ritualistic metaphors and archaeological fact intersect is not entirely clear, but we know this: whatever threat the Testament of Omen spoke must have come to pass, as according to the logs the entire population disappeared mysteriously several decades prior to the Grand Herald project being concluded. But the automated construction yard has continued to work, finalizing a ship without passengers. The mostly intact but empty ship has been slumbering here for eons without anyone to pilot it. I suggest we take it out for a spin. Of course, this all raises questions, the obvious one being where did the entire population go? If they perished in battle, we would have expected to have found evidence showing that, but perhaps more pressing, this civilization that was not FTL capable prior to the Communion somehow began to build a Titan-class warship. We can only speculate, but perhaps the Eater of Worlds grew tired waiting for the civilization to complete the vessel and war on its behalf, and as such, it ate them instead. Amusing for one with a sense of irony, that their seeking of help to save them from their prophesied doom was likely what ended up bringing it about. Nevertheless, their curse is our gain. The Grand Herald, as it shall remain named, is on its way to Alpha Centauri. It will make a fine addition to our fleet. And number 1, kleptomaniac rats. The best dig site in the game, and as such, number 1 on this list, is that of the kleptomaniac rats. This dig site gives you not only a relic world, which as mentioned in Planetary Machinery is incredibly powerful, but it also gives you the Rubricator relic, with which you can pump out minor artifacts, drastically increase the power of any archaeotech weaponry, i.e. ancient nano-missile cloud launcher, the meta loadout for the Become the Crisis warships. And if that wasn't enough, through defeating the Guardian, Shard, you have the opportunity to throw a parade, which when completed rewards you with Shard's Eye, giving you a 10 plus sensor range and hyperlane detection, and a 5% to worker and menial drone output. It is the accumulation of reward that makes this one top tier for me. I shall detail how we discovered the Rubricator for you now. Dr. Hartfilia aboard the science vessel Sundance reports. She details that she discovered faint traces of weapon radiation indicative of a military spacecraft in the Gossick system. She was ordered to investigate and report all findings. The Doctor and her crew discovered a badly damaged military vessel bearing elaborate alien insignia of unknown design. The ship appears to have suffered a heavy incendiary attack which has melted through its hull, leaving no survivors aboard. No weapons known to us can produce temperatures high enough to cause such an effect, even the mighty arc emitters fitted on our newest battleships. Dr. Hartfilia and her team boarded the vessel and attempted to access the ship's logs. An analysis of the logs revealed that the crew met its demise when trying to retrieve an irreplicable alien artifact, referred to as the Rubricator. It was stolen from their society by something that they described as a pack of thieving rats, a curious choice of words as they themselves are most rat-like in appearance. The logs are mainly comprised of curses, willing the rat robbers to perish in several graphic and detailed ways. The Doctor counted upwards of 50 individual words for defecation, as well as a wide selection of places from which a star's light cannot escape. More importantly, the Doctor has uncovered the last unknown location of the Rubricator, previously uncharted system, and has set course to investigate further and hopefully acquire this treasure for ourselves. At the coordinates for the Rubricator's last known location, designated the Zygar system, the Doctor and her team discovered a habitable planet with what they believe may be some form of settlement covering a large portion of the planet's surface. The settlement consists of tall, pile-like towers, visible all the way from space. Clearly this is a relic world, very old, and with luck full of mysteries and treasure. The Doctor has set up a dig site and is eager to discover this world's secrets. The Doctor reports that the planet's settlements contain mostly toppled buildings, crashed spaceships, and general lumps of metal junk and trinkets, all burnt out to a crisp. She suggested that this indicates the former inhabitants of Zygar 3 fled their homes in the midst of losing a battle against a superior foe. The presence of bodies wearing military insignias suggests that they may have been infighting between clans of rats native to different homeworlds. It would seem that their evacuation efforts were impeded by the unwillingness to abandon their treasured trinkets, and apparently many lost their lives scrambling to save completely mundane items. One artifact, however, does seem to have held a special place in their society: the Rubricator. It would seem that the rats fought incredibly hard to save it, but ultimately had to leave it behind. The further into the city ruins the team went, the more it appears that there was order to the rats' chaos. They do, however, report an emanating foul stench of an unknown cause. In any case, the Doctor and her team discovered a considerably well-stocked vault of treasures, tucked away in the basement of a somewhat official-looking building, situated near the centre of the city. Furthermore, the Doctor discovered a digital inventory of many precious items, complete with descriptions and their supposed origins. Dr. Hartfilia reported that the notes made by the rats on these items are gross misinterpretations of their intended use, and highly unhelpful references on where they were found. The Rubricator is one of the items documented in the database. It's described as a thingamajig maker with magical powers. It's supposed to be kept to the right of the Empress's lilac ribbon, under her snout swabs on the four-legged box with the funny face. Hartfilia and the team are mystified by the description. The Doctor and her team have discovered the source of the foul stench they previously reported. Closer to the centre of the city are enormous piles of dried fecal matter and pools of corrosive bile that exude toxic levels of hydrogen sulfide. The team required protective gear to continue to explore further. Despite all attempts, whatever created this pile of feces is unclear, but it did contain many of the rat aliens in various digested states. Some of the ratty aliens were even swallowed whole, and perhaps most disconcerting of all, the team identified a relatively fresh pile, indicating that whatever made it can't be too far away. At the centre of the city, the team identified a grand decorated palace overlooking the main square. The building was lit up by neon signage advertising it as the Empress's Motel. Inside the palace, the chambers are lavish, filled to the brim with all sorts of treasure and trinkets, and it appears that the Rat Empress and her board of trusted advisors govern from this building. It is also where the Hoarders made their last stand, defending the Empress and her precious Rubricator. The team delves deep inside, hoping that the Rubricator is still in situ, on its documented spot by the Empress's lilac ribbon. The Doctor and her team searched the palace extensively, and to their great frustration came up short. That is, until an overly clumsy member of the team, Happy, tripped and fell into a half-rotten bookshelf, breaking it, but revealing a hidden chamber in the process. The chamber was cluttered with various valuable artifacts, and disturbingly, a pile of gnawed bones, dripping in a substantial amount of fresh slobber. However, there, under a used royal nose swab, on a four-legged table, with a carving of a funny-looking face, sat the Rubricator, maker of thingamajigs, right where it is supposed to be according to the database's description. It was a rather small cube with a large button on top that, when pressed, caused the device to spurt out a stream of artifacts. It would appear that the Rubricator was a replication device, an ingenious alien invention that can be used to make endless copies of just about any artifact. The device scans an object on one side and shoots it out on the other side at the tap of a button. A magnificent find. As the Doctor and her team hiked back to their shuttle, a snarling, hissing fiend slithered out from behind one of the larger buildings, possibly an old stadium. The creature was huge, easily as large as a Hercules-class Titan. It had a giant gaping maw, and its face adorned with multiple eyes. The creature was borne aloft by giant winged appendages. It seemed a cross between a mythical dragon and some sort of fish. It had no legs, but two great talons akin to an eagle. The creature drifted towards the group, its great wings rippling in the planet's atmosphere. Heartfilia and the team dropped all their gear, including the rubricator, and ran for cover. The creature ignored them, and with the delicacy that seemed impossible, snatched up the rubricator device. With a hiss that given further time perhaps could be translated, it turned upwards, heading for space. The science team pinged a warning to the ship in orbit, which quickly relayed the distress call out of system, in the hope that one of our military fleets was close enough to come and engage this beast of the void. Fortunately, Strike Force Tally, commanded by Admiral Dragneel, was only 2 short hyperspace jumps away. The fleet had returned from the front lines, having been embroiled in an ongoing conflict with the Pythorian Scourge. A number of ships within the fleet were badly damaged. Dragneel ordered that they continued on to the shipyards on Alpha Centauri, while the rest of the battle group, 8 Goliath-class battleships, 4 heavy cruisers, an assortment of escort corvettes, frigates and destroyers, and finally Dragneel's flagship, a Hercules-class Titan, changed course to intercept this dragon from the void. It was perhaps one of the universe's great coincidence that the Strike Force had been returning from fighting the Scourge, for their ships were equipped with armor-busting tachyon lancers, neutron launchers, and an array of plasma weaponry, perfect for fighting this shieldless void dragon. Strike Force Tally entered the system to find the void dragon, codenamed Shard, closing in on Heartfilia's fleeing science vessel, the Sundance. The battle group closed at maximum speed, dark matter thrusters burning with a purple glow. The dragon quickly came into range. The Perdition beam on Dragneel's Titan spat a thick, yellow beam of energy towards Shard, who twisted, almost unnaturally, managing to avoid the blast. The battle group's escorts closed ranged on the beast, swarming it, peppering it with autocannon and plasma fire, as the frigates attempted bombing runs while avoiding the beast's multiple appendages, swiping out at them from space. Shard mostly ignored the smaller ships, simply using its appendages to swat at them, as a wildebeest swats at flies. The beast then turned its attention to the line of battleships charging their tachyon lancers, and unleashed a mighty beam of fire striking the battleship Erza, causing heavy damage and disabling it. Dragneel's Titan's Perdition beam had by this point finished its charging recycle, and fired again, this time at almost point-blank range. The weapon sheared into the beast, punching a massive hole clean through its thorax. Globules of flesh and bone and blood splattered through space as the beast writhed in pain. Quick thinking from the frigate Fullbuster took advantage of the opening and managed to drop a neutron bomb directly into the hole made by the Titan. The bomb exploded from within the beast, blowing it apart in a mighty explosion. The science vessel had managed to escape the battle, and upon scanning the debris was able to identify the still intact rubricator. The device is now heading for Earth. The Doctor was also able to salvage one of the beast's eyes, which he intends to bring back to Earth for further study. My lords, if I may suggest a parade held in honour of the mighty achievement. Surely eradication of this void beast and finding of the replication device is worthy of celebration. I would also suggest commending the Admiral. Perhaps an honorary title of Dragon Slayer would be fitting, and surely provide a well-needed boost of morale. So that covers what I believe to be 5 of the best dig sites in the galaxy. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Anything you think I've missed, please let me know in the comments, and as ever, if you want to hear more from me, please click the video on screen now.